Wholesalers, it's Rob Shore at Wholesaler Masterminds, and you may be thinking to yourself, Rob, you're thinking, what do you have besides this amazing podcast? And I'm so glad you asked. Wholesaler Masterminds has an assortment of product and services all designed around the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. As an example, we have coaching services designed to help you power wash your practice, whether you have 2 years or 22 years. We'll offer you speaking live engagements at divisional or national sales meetings. Our scheduling service has dedicated professionals trained in the art of getting you more appointments, Wholesaler Mastermind schedulers. Our Speakers Bureau brings you amazing speakers and processes to get better return on investment out of those speakers. And finally, our partnership, our newest partnership with Allego. If you have Allego and want to get the Wholesaler Masterminds channel on your Allego platform, please let us know. Wholesaler Masterminds, happy to bring you this podcast and so much more. Wholesaler Masterminds, the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. It wasn't just yesterday that you would have found me in a familiar place for a late afternoon. You would have found me on a treadmill or an elliptical or a bike. And I'm trying to work out, right? Getting old, trying to work out. And I'm listening to a podcast. Shocker. Not only do we produce a podcast, but I love to listen to them. And there was this comedian on a podcast, and they were talking about the fact that millennials no longer use doorbells. Now, apparently, I didn't know this. Again, I'm old. Millennials don't use doorbells. They text when they've gotten out of their Uber or their Lyft to their friend's house, and then their friends come greet them. And then she said, and don't even get me started on phones, because millennials are phonophobic. And that's the way that I feel about financial advisors and scheduling appointments and placing outbound phone calls and call resistance and call reluctance. And we're going to tear apart this whole topic of using the phone today. Welcome to the only podcast on the planet dedicated to exploring the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesalers and their leaders. This is the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. I'm your host, the founder of Wholesaler Masterminds, Rob Shore. Wholesalers, welcome back to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. Today's guest calls himself the cold call coach. He has some background as a financial advisor. He's done fundraising at the college level. And I need to get inside this guy's head, because he enjoys calling folks that he doesn't know, and apparently has a success and translatable success factor that we need to know more about. Paul Neuberger, welcome to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show.
Well, thank you. And getting inside of my head is a scary place to be. So proceed at your own risk, my friend.
Well, let's start out. Give me a quick skinny on this, because unless you are a glutton for punishment, I don't know many folks that leave gainful employment to go out on their own, teaching people how to pick up the phone and potentially get crushed. So how did you get to this place, Paul?
Well, to use your words exactly, and I was going to say it before you even said it, I am a glutton for punishment. I don't know if it's because my parents dropped me on my head a lot as a youth, but I've always been drawn to things that are hard. I think if it's not hard in life, it's not worth doing. We don't really realize a lot of professional development doing things that are easy. You don't carve out a niche for yourself doing things that are easy. It's through the hard, through the trial by fire, that really starts making us who we are. So I've always been drawn to that, and I've got an extroverted, outgoing personality. So cold calling was a part of fundraising. Cold calling was a part of financial advising, and I constantly kept tinkering with new things, new scripts, new approaches, new methodologies, new value propositions. And over time, I started finding stuff that worked. And when other individuals and organizations offered to pay me financially for that insight, I got the idea to create this business. So in April 2015, the Cold Call Coach was born. I went full-time in October of 2015 to meet the demand, and since then I've got clients in 35 states and multiple countries, and it's all because I think I embraced something that was hard, and I look forward to having this conversation with you.
So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea, and I want to start at 30,000 feet. I mean, I can unveil, though I think you have seen, all of the statistics that tell us that advisors have virtually no interest in talking to you on the telephone. Internal wholesalers know that. External wholesalers know that. The statistics continue to pile up that tell us that advisors would prefer to schedule appointments via email, sometimes text if we're allowed to do that, and they certainly don't want to talk to us. So, on one hand, it could be a golden opportunity if you do it well, but on the other hand, aren't you just swimming upstream against a super, super strong tide?
Well, sure, but they don't want to talk to you if you call like everybody else. They don't want to speak with you if you sound like everybody else. They don't want to engage you on the phone if they think you're going to sell them just like everybody else. And I think what your wholesaler audience has a unique opportunity here is to go in the other direction. Yes, we're still using the phone, but we're using the phone differently. We're offering a different message. We're providing high-level differentiation. We're selling the individual as the person in a manner that's non-salesy. So yes, if you call in the exact same way that cold calling has always been done, you'll get crushed, and that's evidenced by the national statistics. But I don't think any individual, any organization, if you look at the national cold call success rate, depending on the stats that you believe and the stats that you abide by, roughly 7% cold call success is considered good. That means you're failing 93% of the time.
Who wants to do that to themselves?
Nobody. That's why I'm saying it takes a different approach. It takes another strategy. And if you go about the process differently, they will want to talk to you and they will want to engage with you.
Let's start to dissect this a little bit, because there's 4 items that in the pre-call I mentioned I want to get in your head about, and wholesalers, we're not going to have a chance to talk about all 4. We're just not. But I was referred to Paul, and I'm captivated by what he potentially can do for us. So let's talk about this whole notion of pre-call strategy. So tell us a little bit about what that means. You talk about things like pre-call philosophy and ideal client identification, how to time the call properly. I mean, there's a lot on the bone there. Help us dissect some of it. Where do we start? I mean, most pre-call strategy, if I'm not incorrect, and I know I'm not because I've cold called and had teams of people cold calling, well, there's a list of financial advisors. They're on my top prospect list. Go get them, Tiger. And that's where things start to get off the rails pretty quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I believe that cold calling is literally won or lost before you ever pick up the phone. Okay. Now, that's not the sexy part of cold calling. The sexy part is what Hollywood has glamorized. You think of movies like Boiler Room, Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, where you see these very articulate, well-polished men and women basically getting the prospect to bend to his or her will. Well, if that's your view of cold calling and that's it, you are doomed to failure. Because what I believe is before you pick up the phone, you need to know a couple of things. One, you need to know, does this prospect need me? You'll need to know, 2, how do I time that call to optimize success? And you'll need to know, 3, are you offering the right value-add proposition that's going to put you in a position to be successful more often than not? And really what we emphasize is really 2 things. You talk about philosophy. All I mean by philosophy is how are you using the greatest sales tool ever, which is the phone. If you're using the phone to sell your company, you're using it incorrectly. If you're using the phone to lead with your products and services, brother, sister, you're using it incorrectly. What we need to do is we need to show you how to use this tool to put you in a position to optimize success that goes hand in hand with human nature.
Okay, so
let
me ask you about this. Hold on. So I want to ask about this whole notion of, for instance, knowing who you're going to call, right? Making sure you're calling the right person. So I'm going to see if I can marry 2 ideas, and maybe I'm not on the right track, and if I'm not, please tell me. But one of the things we stress a lot at Wholesaler Masterminds is advisor reconnaissance, understanding through your research that you know how the advisor ticks, their heart, their head, their practice, etc. Is this some of what you're talking about when you try to discern if you're calling the right person?
Yeah, I mean, what I don't believe the cold call should be used for, now this may be a bit of a smack in the face to some of the wholesalers listening to this. There are 2 myths really about cold calling. One, I do not believe the cold call should be used to build rapport. That's what a lot of people think it is used for. I got to get this prospect to like me. I got to get this person to open up. Well, if you receive a call from an unregistered number, from a person you never heard of, from an organization you're not familiar with, and they're trying to get you to like them, what kind of a call must it be? The only answer I can reasonably think of is the sales call. Who else is trying to get you to like them on the initial call?
Of course.
So we try not to build rapport, or at least proactively go above and beyond to build rapport on the initial cold call, because that's salesy. The other thing that we're not trying to do is qualify them on the initial call for the same reason. It's an unregistered number, person you never heard of, organization you're not familiar with, and they're trying to see if you're a fit for their products or services. That smacks of a sales call. So what we stress, and what I would advise the wholesalers listening to this to do, is to identify your ideal client, your perfect financial advisor, your perfect financial advisor office, whatever the case may be, and you should be able to drill down in 6 specific, quantifiable criteria in terms of what it is that makes that client ideal. For example, you could say criteria number 1 is located in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. Number 2, has at least 5 financial advisors in the office. Number 3, manages $100 million in assets. Number 4, has been in business less than 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. But everything should be specific and quantifiable, because that is where we do the pre-qualification. And based on that list, if you say, man, if they meet 5 of these 6 criteria, it's certainly worth my time to get to know them and have a conversation. But the minute you sound salesy on the cold call, you're dead, and that's what we try to get our clients to avoid.
So wholesalers, if you're curious, go out to the website, wholesalermasterminds.com, use the search bar, the search icon in the upper right, put in preferred client profile or ideal client or ideal advisor, preferred advisor profile. I think that's it, preferred advisor profile. And you'll see a laundry list that we wrote some time ago about how to think about your ideal client that Paul is speaking about. Let's shift over to the time to cold call. So there's some things that come to my mind, not knowing how to be a cold call expert, as you are. There's some things that come to my mind. Monday morning, just before the market opens, probably crappy timing. Friday afternoon, just as people are trying to get out of the office onto weekends, anytime afternoon, that just intuitively sounds like a bad time. What's the right time to cold call?
Sure, and you're going to love me for saying this. If you're looking at Monday versus Thursday, you're asking the wrong question. Okay. If you're looking at 3 p.m. versus 10 a.m., again, you're asking the wrong question. What we do, especially in the wholesale industry, when you're going after financial advisors and financial services professionals, what you should be targeting and timing your cold call on to the fullest extent possible is what we call life events. Life events. What is it that this individual financial advisor is going through where the needs for your services go up, where there's more of an urgency for the products and services that you provide? Now, if it's B2C, you're looking at a life event for that respective individual. But if it's B2B, let's say you're just looking to get in front of the entire financial services organization in question, what is it that organization is going through where the needs for your services go up? I'll just give you 2 real quick examples. These are not the only examples, mind you, and not every ideal client is going through a life event. But when you see it, you need to recognize it, and you should time a cold call accordingly. A B2B example, for instance, maybe a new managing partner has come in. With a new managing partner, that's certainly a life event. New managing partner might be open to new ideas. New managing partner might be, well, the old way of doing business is over. We're going to open up the books and build new strategic partnerships. That could be a life event. When you're talking about the B2C side, for instance, looking at the individual in question, maybe that individual reached a certain age. Maybe that individual has achieved certain assets under management. Maybe that individual is had something else go on in their life where they brought on a partner or something like that. If you can identify a life event, it does 3 things real quick. 1, it creates an urgent need for your services. They now need you more quickly than they did before. 2, it changes their perspective. Whereas before, I don't think we need this organization. Now maybe we do. And because it modifies, changes their perspective, it leads to number 3, which is a modification of behavior. So wherever possible, identify organizational and individual life events and try to time your cold call as best as you can accordingly.
Now, I want to go back to something I said before, because you partially answered it, but I don't think satisfactorily got around it. I did not ask the question correctly. And that's this whole notion, back to reconnaissance, that I talk about. You can't do what you just said. You can't be on the lookout for life events if you just blindly pick up the telephone, which means, if I'm following you correctly, and again, tell me if I'm not, you need to invest some time before the call to harvest some information about your target so that you can, as an example, time the cold call correctly. Am I following you?
Absolutely, you are following me, and I apologize if I didn't answer that to your satisfaction. But yes, absolutely, that's part of the strategy. One of the biggest pervasive myths out there when it comes to cold calling is that cold calling is a numbers game.
Yes.
Well, sure, if you don't know what you're doing, it's a numbers game.
Yes.
If you don't know who to call, it's a numbers game. My clients and anybody that goes about cold calling the correct way, including people in the wholesale profession, can schedule a lot more appointments with far fewer calls if they're calling the right people, if they do their due diligence, and if they have the right scripting process. And it's really not that hard if you go about it the right way.
Yes. And you could, I so appreciate what you're doing. And you could take the word cold out of it in our world, especially internal wholesalers, right? In our world, if you're just, and there's posts upon posts out there, wholesalers, where I've written about this. I've done audio recordings around this. If you're just, picking up the phone and pounding out the next call because your desk manager says you got to hit 50 dials in a day, man, I know Paul would like to talk to him. I'd like to talk to him too and give him all the reasons why that's just, setting you up to get beat about the head and shoulders, because doing that doesn't meet the goals of doing what Paul is talking about. So anyway, I have to crawl off my soapbox here before a plane comes by.
But if I may jump in, this is why I love you so much, because at the end of the day, it's not quantity over quality, it's quality over quantity. And if you think about anything in life, who enjoys going to see a low-quality movie? Who enjoys going to a low-quality social event? Who enjoys having a low-quality meal? Nobody. Well, why should we sacrifice quality when it comes to cold calling? And where this thought is come into the lexicon, well, just make 50 calls and go home. Great, I get 50 no's and go home. The emphasis is and always should be on quality, and if you can do that, you're going to be far more successful than your peers because everybody's priorities are out of whack.
Let's get off. I want to get some lightning round stuff here because I'm watching the clock and I want to make sure that we always meet our desire to bring this in reasonably on time anyway, even though we'll leave plenty of information on the table, but hell, that's why you have a business. Let's talk about the lightning round, okay? So how do I get past a gatekeeper? That's like that's a $30,000 or more question. How do I get past a gatekeeper?
You get past three ways. One, you bring them in on the value-add proposition. Do not hide anything from the gatekeeper. You're going to turn the gatekeeper into an advocate if you can tell them openly and honestly what it is that's in for the organization or the person of interest. Two, always answer every single question the gatekeeper asks. Treat them like a human being. If you start dodging their questions or avoiding their questions, boy, that call is not going to last long. And number three, the other thing that I believe is we should treat that gatekeeper as if they exist. Greet them, engage them, be warm and friendly. And if you can do those three things, more often than not, they're going to go that extra mile for you.
I'm sitting here shaking my head, literally shaking my head, because I know everything that you say is true. And I also know how many people that use the phone for business and reach that gatekeeper, whatever level they might be in the organization, whatever their title might be in the organization. And how many people want to go dodgy on that person, right? They want to start, figuring out side streets or telling half truths or giving half answers. And that is just, as you said, a recipe for getting the crap smacked out of you telephonically, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. I mean, one of the things that I really like to do with the gatekeeper is not only treat them as if they're alive, answer their questions, be open and honest and transparent. Gatekeepers hate when a wholesaler goes on what I call a fishing expedition. Fishing just means you're fishing for answers. So, for instance, if you said, who would I talk to about your annuity products? That's fishing. And gatekeepers to a T tell me that once you start fishing, those flags go right up. Gatekeeper answers the phone and says, good morning, ABC Financial. Well, good morning. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? That is fishing, because you're probably just interested in their name, so you can use that when you get the decision maker or person of interest on the line. So tackle them head on, engage them, bring them into the value, and do not insult their intelligence.
Let's talk about voicemails. It is inevitable. Every single person listening here leaves countless voicemails every day because so few people pick up the damn phone. So give us some guidance on voicemails. I mean, we have mere moments, literally. You know that. I know that. Hell, you teach this. We have mere moments to get people to begin to listen to what we're about to say. How do I get people to listen to my voicemail?
So for me, I love voicemails because voicemails are the easiest thing to fix, and especially in the wholesale industry, based upon who folks in your industry are calling, there's no reason why wholesalers should not have a ridiculously high voicemail response rate. And the answer is very, very simple. I believe that a good defense beats a good offense. Think about football. Think about basketball. You've got the NFC team, the AFC team. Who's more likely to win the Super Bowl, the team with the all-time best defense or the team with the all-time best offense? Most people will say the defense. The same is true with cold calling. A defensive voicemail is not what you say, but by what you don't say. A defensive voicemail is not what you put in, but rather what you take out. Now, I'm not to say we're going to lie or be misleading, because there's no way I would ever advocate that, but to not sound salesy, to not give them the ending of the movie in the first few seconds of the trailer, leave them wanting more. So basically, just get rid of all of the salesy stuff in your voicemail, pique their curiosity. Basically, when they hear your voicemail, one of the all-time greatest thoughts that should be running through their head is, okay, I know this is Paul Neuberger, but gosh, it could be anybody. But gosh, this sounds intriguing. I have to find out more. And if you can pique their curiosity, play stellar defense, and not give away the ending of the movie in the preview, man, this is the easiest thing to fix. And there is no question in my mind that your wholesalers will have a tremendously high voicemail response rate if they focus on defense as opposed to offense.
I got one last question. How do I get myself in the right frame of mind to want to pick up the phone? You see, call reluctance. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with Art Sobczak, but Art Sobczak literally wrote the book on phone selling. And anytime somebody has call reluctance issues, I always refer to him. What are your thoughts on call reluctance? How do I get over the hump of this deadly beast called iPhone that I just don't want to interact with, or that, you know, that Avaya system that's sitting on my desk that I don't even want to touch? How do I get over call reluctance?
I really see two ways. One is what we call perspective readjustment, and this is what I talked about earlier from a philosophical perspective. If you think that as a wholesaler you need to sell the financial advisor on your product in the very first call, that's a daunting task. That's a difficult task. And because daunting, difficult tasks usually fill us with apprehension, especially when we've been shouted at and being called four-letter words on a regular basis, that makes you not want to do it. But if rather than selling your company, your products, and your services, I'm going to challenge you to sell yourself as a person, highlight your intangibles, and showcase yourself as a human being and how you can bring value to this individual who has an obvious need for you, not only personally, but also professionally. So the first thing is to readjust their perspective and show you that cold calling is not this big, ugly monster. It actually can be customized for you. It can fit like a glove. And if it's done in your voice in a method that you're comfortable with, it becomes a lot easier. But more importantly, I think the second way is to start witnessing success as quickly as possible. The longer you defer making the call, the longer that you seek professional help, the longer that you try to develop yourself in this regard professionally, the worse it becomes, and it just snowballs. The sooner you can taste success, the sooner you can get that voicemail return, the sooner you can get that dedicated time, now momentum is on your side, and you feel like an invincible beast in no time.
Wholesalers, you know, we've done 150 shows. I'm energized by this being one of our best because the content is so relevant, the expertise is so apparent, and I am 100% certain that some of the ideas contained herein, though we just kind of skipped across the surface of the water, are going to be able to help you. Paul Neuberger, thank you for joining us.
It was an honor. Thank you for having me.
Wholesalers, come back next time for the next episode of the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. You'll find all of our content at wholesalermasterminds.com, and the podcast can be found at iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.